So, what is it? You know, I looked at a couple definitions, and it is that self-perceived ability to use, understand, and manage emotions in ourselves as well as others. So there's very much a me component in all of this. Not only do we have to perceive our emotions, but we have to do it appropriately and accurately. We have to understand our emotions, and how do we manage them? Do we manage them appropriately for the situations? Not only do we have to do that in ourselves, but in others. But can we really control the emotions of what others? We really can't, can we? We can't control their emotions, but we control how we respond and react to their emotions. They see it in our face. I know sometimes when someone has an emotional response to something, you can definitely see it not only in our facial expressions, but verbally what we say and non-verbally what we say, as well as how we react behaviorally. And how do we manage that? We have to not only look at ourselves, but others, but also how to react to emotions of a group. Other things with this too is we cannot control those, but we can control what we do. Other things that with EI, we consider it a broad intelligence. And because it's such an organized response, the way we respond to emotions is so organized. We have physical changes from it, as well as we have feelings or felt experiences, especially physically. We have cognitions or thoughts about how we feel, as well as we put actions into place. What are some characteristics of high and low? We're going to do a little quiz in probably about 5-10 minutes from now to really see where your emotional intelligence is at. Is it high? Is it low? Or you're somewhere in the middle? As healthcare providers or working in healthcare, faculty, staff, you're probably somewhere in the middle to high. People with high EI, we're definitely more assertive, ambitious. We're strong-willed, not stubborn. We're strong-willed. Other things with that, we're warm, enthusiastic. We can be patient. We're good listeners. We're very consistent, detailed, and very careful about things we do. Where on the other hand, people that have lower EIs or emotional intelligence, they tend to be poor listeners, very impulsive, critical. They're the demanding people of life, easily distracted, and that's when it comes into play with that impulsivity, very resistant to change. They don't roll with it. Stubborn, and they're perfectionists. So, you know, perfection, sometimes we feel that is a good thing in us, but we know that's not always the case. So why is it so important? There's 5 important aspects or components to EI. Very much it's self-awareness, being aware. It is self-regulation. How do we regulate our emotions? 2 is motivation. 3 is motivation, then social skills and empathy. We know empathy plays a huge role, especially in us in healthcare. I want to talk a little bit about each of them individually. When we talk about self-awareness, emotional awareness, how are we recognizing our emotions and their effects? Not only do our emotions affect us, but they affect people around us too. Knowing our strengths and our limitations and accurately assessing those. We should be doing that frequently, is where are our strengths and limitations? Have we made growth? And sureness, this is our self-confidence. Where is our self-confidence? Are we sure about what we're doing? Especially in our self-worth and our capabilities. When it comes to self-regulation, how are we regulating our emotions? That self-control, or do we have an impulsive aspect to them? We get impulsive. Are we able to manage those disruptive? We're really good at managing our happy emotions, but are we good at managing our disruptive ones? When we're sad, when we're angry, can we manage those in ourselves? Or when someone's angry or mad at us or sad, what do we do? Do we back away from it? Do we get uncomfortable when someone's mad? Do we get uncomfortable when someone's sad? And can we manage that? Trustworthiness. This is where integrity comes into play. Do you have integrity? It's interesting how that plays such a role in emotional intelligence and honesty. Are we conscientious of what we do? Do we take responsibility for our actions? I like this one about adaptability. Are we flexible and open to new ideas? And that's when that innovativeness comes in. Are we really open and wanting and really adaptable to change, to new ideas? Do we bring new ideas forward? Or when people bring new ideas forward to us, or we're like, that's a great idea. That's that thinking outside that box. Motivation. Motivation, are we that procrastinator? This is where procrastination comes in. Achievement. Are we striving to improve each and every day of our lives? Are we trying to meet a standard just to meet it? Or are we trying to strive for excellence? Are we committed to our goals, not only of ourselves, but of others, our group, of our organization, of school? Initiative, do we take that initiative? Are we ready to take on opportunities? Are we persistent in pursuing those goals despite obstacles? This reminds me a lot of resilience. And I think people who have high emotional intelligence have a lot of resiliency too, because they try to overcome those challenges in life, our setbacks, and they keep on moving forward. Social skills. And we know social skills play such a huge role in emotional intelligence. When I looked at this, this is how do we influence others? Are we their cheerleaders in life? Are we able to communicate effectively? Communication, when we talk about how is emotional intelligence importance in the healthcare, communication is the biggest piece. Because you can effectively communicate not only what your needs are, but what other people's needs are too. Are you convincing in that communication? Are you able to inspire others in a group? Are you initiate and manage change? Are you that change maker of your place? Are you able to resolve conflict? Again, this plays a huge role and importance when it comes to emotional intelligence. And when we talk about it in healthcare, we resolve conflicts all the time in healthcare or in your job. There's conflicts all the time. Do we nurture our relationships and build those bonds with the people we work with, or the people we're friends with, or our families? Team member. Emotional intelligence definitely is that team capability. And you work as a team, not only as a group, but you work towards common goals and that team goal. And we know empathy is probably one of the most important key pieces of it, especially when you work in healthcare. Sorry, get a drink of water. And it's sensing others' feelings and perspective and taking an active interest in their concerns. Everyone says sympathy. What is sympathy then? Pardon, pity. You feel sorry for them. Empathy is not feeling sorry for another person. It's kind of like you're walking beside them in their shoes and you have an understanding of how they feel. That's what empathy is, and we need to, it's such a good thing to have, and being able to sense what they're feeling. You're not taking on their world, but you're just walking alongside them. What are 7 personal benefits? I really like this one because what are benefits? Your personal benefits for emotional intelligence. 1, it helps reduce stress. It helps you be in control of yourself through management of distressing emotions, not only in yourself, but in others. It protects your mental health. We know emotional intelligence and all the readings I have looked at, it's strongly linked to being loved and spirituality too. So it's such a key component there. We know it protects us from illness, that resiliency that comes into play again. We have improved relationships. Not only do we have empathy for ourselves, which is definitely important, but empathy for others. It helps us moderate our conflicts and promotes relationships. And then finally, it helps us guide our life decisions. So those are some really great benefits of having high EIs. And you'll hear me call it EI or EQ. Why is it so important to healthcare? A couple of the studies I looked at regarding emotional intelligence, it definitely talked about burnout and job satisfaction. One of the studies I looked at, Voku and all, they looked at that relationship between burnout and emotional intelligence. And really what they found was definitely that correlation, that individuals, and they actually looked at healthcare providers that worked in long-term care and rehab. And when they saw that their burnout rates were high, their emotional intelligence was low. And when they had high emotional intelligence, their burnout rates were low. Another study I looked at ICU nurses, which we know the burnout rate for ICU in those high acuity places is really high. Again, they found that those individuals with high emotional intelligence had higher job satisfaction. And they were actually much more involved within their organizations too. So such a huge role to play. Another thing, it improves patient outcomes. The literature was a little bit mixed on this, but most of the literature was very positive that patient outcomes were much more positive. It helps improve our relationships, not only with our patients, our families, and our teams. Especially when communication is effective and it's clear, we know that that's such a huge piece. That if we don't have effective communication, things get missed. So that's when errors can happen and our patients get injured because of that. Other things that we looked at, they showed that there's actually an improved in utilization of time. So staff was decreasing chances of decreasing procrastination. So they used their time more effectively. And they used their resources. So those are money savers for the institutions. Other things, these are the individuals that actively participate in the organization. They're the ones that are on the committees. Then finally, it's improved teamwork. And again, that effective communication between the team. And one of the other things I saw was how it can improve when we talked about patient outcomes, having that high emotional intelligence, was that when we're able to read the emotions of our patients, their families, or even of the staff, it just helps so much better understanding really what the problem is. Because when we're working with individuals that are in pain or have high anxiety or stress, maybe the real problem is underneath and we're not seeing it yet. So if we can sense that, we can really help our families and our patients. I remember one time, back when I taught one of the second level nursing classes, we had a patient who the nurse told, she says, I don't know if you guys want to take her. She's really angry today. I'm like going, okay, that's fine. I've dealt with angry patients before. This would be a good learning experience for my student. So I walk in the room. She's definitely very angry. But on her wall was this picture of this dog. I'm like going, okay, she's angry. I says, oh, what a cute little dog you have. And then all of a sudden, she like changed. She's like, yeah, I have a little dog at home. I asked her if that was her. She says, yeah, I have a dog at home. And she says, I'm really worried. They admitted me today, and there's no one at home taking care of my dog. But I can sense there was more than just her being in the hospital. It was the fact that her little dog was home alone and she had nobody to take care of him. And I just kind of sat with her and says, who is at home that could take care of your dog? She says, well, my neighbor has a key. I says, well, let's call your neighbor and let's see. Called the neighbor, and the neighbor says, sure, I'll take care of your dog, not a problem. Just let me know when you get home and we got it taken care of. From that moment on, she was the most pleasant patient we ever took care of. Because we sensed there was something else going on with her besides her being in the hospital, being angry. So that's that we need to do, is look beyond what we see in front of us. Because what we see in front of us may not be what the problem is. So we have to dig deeper. Now let's see where your emotional intelligence is at. There's two ways of doing it. You can either go to my little short website, or you can do your phone and you can do the QR code, or you have the paper copies of it too in front of you. You can do it either way. I emailed you the survey. No.
Stuff, so I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I wonder if students online, they can click on that.
They can click on that.
Okay, cool.
Mhm. And it takes them to the survey. Do the QR code works too?
I don't have a QR reader.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I probably should just, yeah.
I didn't put you forward. Can you go back?
Yeah, sorry. When I go to chat, yeah, then okay, so I'll let them know. I'll mail it to them. This way. There you go.
What?
I was just a little confused because it said give yourself 3 points for A. Is that for question 1 or?
For this one.
For the
Yeah.
one above?
For the one above it. Because I couldn't figure out how to do that, so that's why. It may be easier to do it that way. Whatever you want to do. can't move forward until she does. How's everyone doing? I tried some new technology this time. I don't know if I like it yet. That's why I made paper copies too. Here. You guys ready? See where you're at? So if you score that 60 to 68, this is considered relatively high emotional intelligence, but there's always room for growth, right? Always room. So even though you scored here, you should really always look at your reactions and look at other people's reactions to your emotions. So you're the person that doesn't really lose it, okay? And if you score between 48 to 60, you're kind of in that middle range. Although you respond pretty much appropriate, sometimes you do lose it, okay? You may not always respond appropriately in all situations. You probably get impatient sometimes with others and maybe get uncomfortable with emotions. But we know that there's, again, we can look at ways to help you reach that higher level. When we talk about ranges of 40 to 48, those are a little bit low. You probably struggle with managing your emotions, especially in areas that are high stress, that demand a lot of your attention, or when you get angry. Below 40, we know this is extremely low. You're probably having some anxiety or stress on a daily basis. Probably are having difficulty at work or school. And you're not making progress like you wish you could. And we'll talk about how to improve that so people can be happier and have more meaning in their lives. So now that you know where you're at, are you satisfied of where you're at? So, can it be learned? Definitely, yes, it can be learned. We know it can. We know that there's measures that we can take that can improve our emotional intelligence. but it's learned through time, and it's learned through effort, repetition, and practice. It's not something you go read a book on, and you go, I got it. Emotional is something that you have to practice day in and day out. We know there's a genetic component. Some people are very much born with just kind of that they're empathics and they just can sense things. And we know that increases with age. And we know as we get older, maturity, right? We have life experiences. So lots of times our emotional intelligence will actually go up as we age and we gain those life experiences. So what are those ways that we can help improve it? One of the things we can do is pay attention and observe our emotions, both positive and negative. I know I love to take inventory of all my negative emotions, right? We don't, but take an inventory of those and stand back and really watch and really feel how you're feeling about that. You know, from your body senses to what you're thinking about it. We know emotions are so complex that some people can go from being angry to happy in 24 hours or less than 24 hours. And need to stay open to all of our emotions. Doesn't matter if they're good or bad. And sometimes we have to take a pause. We have to step back. When you feel that anger or you're feeling that sadness coming upon, sometimes we need to take that step back and take inventory of it. Like, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? There's really nothing going on, but there is. So taking inventory of it. And understand those emotions do change. We have to take ownership of it. I think this is probably one of the hardest ones, is taking ownership of our emotions, not only of those, but the way we behave and react to them. Because sometimes we don't react positively to an emotion. We maybe get angry and do something that like, ooh, should never have done that. But those are automatic and unconscious reactions that we've learned over time. You know, but we need to monitor those. Even though we maybe reacted in a situation that really wasn't very great, we need to take inventory and say, okay, how can I do that differently next time? And when I mean about other things, about taking ownership of it and about our emotions, is also admitting when you're wrong. We all love to admit when we're wrong and say, right? But admitting when we're wrong and saying, I'm sorry, and practicing that when you are. Other ways of doing this is practicing responding rather than reacting to an emotion. Respond to it. We know, how would you respond appropriately to someone who's maybe angry at you, or maybe they're disappointed in you? Practice empathy for yourself. This is where self-care comes in, right? You know, how many things, we all say that empathy is like being selfish on ourselves. We're so much better with it, with having empathy for others, that we don't do it for ourselves. Of taking that step and saying, wow, I am feeling sad today. And just kind of walking alongside that. Create a positive environment. This is probably one of the best ways of helping, not only in your work, but at home, with our families and friends and coworkers. And positive thinking. Even when you don't want to think positively, that just helps so much. I love this one. Practice active listening. This is being intentional. How many of you guys ever practice intentional listening? It's hard to do. But sometimes I want you to do when someone walks in, the students back there, when you're at your laptop and someone's talking to you, I want you to put your laptop down and actually listen to who's ever talking to you. Or when someone walks into your office, how many of us are still on our computers? You're like, if I can only answer that email. Okay, Okay, I can't put my hand on the mouse, I can't type, but you so much want to, right? Are we actively listening when we do that? Right. I find myself doing that and I have to shut it down. Because people, they are aware of that. They know that, oh, they're probably not listening to what I have to say. So whatever I have to say is not important. Knowing what your stressors and triggers are. Take time for stress relief. Again, this is very much that self-care component that comes into play. And those are just practical ways. There's list upon list of ways to help increase your emotional intelligence. But these are just a few. So when it comes to emotional self, where are you? Who's your real person? And who do you want to be? What's that ideal? So who do I want to be in my emotional intelligence? Do I want to stay where I'm at or do I want to grow? Who am I now? How do I get there? And how do I make it stick? We know that with emotional intelligence, it's not something, again, that you just do one day and it sticks. It's day in and day out. And who can help? Who are your go-to people? I like to be the lion. I'd be a lioness, but when you look in the mirror, who do you want to be when it comes to your emotional growth? Do you want to stay stuck where you are, or do you want to see growth? Questions? And then my last page is references. Questions, comments? Sure. Right.
And that's what I was thinking when you mentioned that. How often do you not do that? You mentioned the computer and busy doing this.
Right.
Put that down and you're actually
Looking at them. Another way to practice active listening is you can do this with anyone, your significant other, your children, or whoever you want to practice it with, but stand back to back and have them give you instructions of what to draw and see how close you're paying attention to it. That's a great way to see if you're really listening to. Be surprised what comes out. I do that sometimes when I've done a couple therapies. And then usually at the end they say, see, he doesn't or she doesn't listen to me. I'm like, okay, sorry, I forget about that. Trish.
I have all the right sleep. I've eaten a healthy meal. But the days that you're just totally stressed out, you didn't get enough sleep, and maybe you didn't eat well the night before, and your husband's on your every last nerve, and then you get this patient that's that angry patient. You know, what are some recommendations when you've had those days when maybe you're not at your full capacity? How can you really pull the EI out?
One, I think, is you definitely have to recognize that, because if you do not recognize when you've had it up to here that day, you're not going to be able to pull your EI out. You're not going to be able to pull out those things that you have learned. But then you have to take that pause and take that step back and figure out, okay, what's going on here? Why am I feeling or doing what I'm doing? Or why am I reacting the way I'm reacting? And probably, as we know that in healthcare, doesn't matter if you're a radiology technologist, the nurse, PTA, we know life gets stressful, right? And we know we have days that are just overwhelming. And the last thing you want to do is walk into a patient's room that's angry. But sometimes, what do? What does people tell us to do? We check it where? You have to check it at the door, and you have to take that step back and go, what's going on? And then you have to pull out, okay, what are my skills here? What are my strengths? And I know, Trish, your strength is really bonding with people. So pulling that out and making that connection with them. Some of you guys don't know, but I also, I do some stuff down at the Lydia House with the drug and alcohol program down there. I remember when I first started down there, it was like, I hate going down there for my internship. Now it fills me up because I had to take a step back and say, what is it about this arena of taking care of these ladies that affects my emotions so much? And once I figured that out, I was able to go in there with such an open attitude now. And I was like going, I really enjoy this. It kind of like it fills my tank. So I think that's where it's at, is taking inventory of where it's coming from. And you're right, sleep, self-care is important because we know when we do not get enough self-care, our reactions to situations go downhill from there. Our work gets affected, our relationships are affected, everything around us gets affected. We know that. I don't have a magic answer for that, Trish. Jane.
I think we've all had days where maybe someone approached us, or maybe it's our significant other or student, whatever, that they're maybe not operating at the highest level of emotional intelligence. So what can we do to help them build their emotional intelligence? What type of resources could we recommend for them? And I'm by no means the top emotional intelligent person, but you know what I'm saying. How can we help them grow?
I think when it comes to other people's emotional intelligence, is just having that empathy for where they're at and working with them individually of role modeling. Some of you guys know I have a son that has Asperger's, so his emotional intelligence is not very high. So we do a lot of role modeling and we do a lot of role playing, especially on different emotions, how to react to it. And I think that's where it comes with when people that we love and really working with them on those kind of aspects. Having about being active listening, you know, working with them on having them say, hey, I see you're getting angry here. What is that all about? Oh, I'm just mad today. No. What else is going on? So kind of drawing it out. And as you're doing that, then they start to recognize and start taking inventory of their own emotions. And sometimes we can't control that in others, can we? Can we control how other people feel? No. Really, can we make their EI go high? No. All we can do is role model what we do. And role model our active listening, role model the way we react and respond to their emotions. And hopefully through that, they'll say, wow, I don't have to respond inappropriately when someone gets mad at me, because not everyone does that. So I think those are kind of things that you can put in place. Sorry. That's, we know we can't change other people as much as we would like to. There's a few people in life I want to change. If there's no more questions, thank you guys for your time and attention.